Hi everyone, it's Rachel from Don't Crop Me Now. It's the bank holiday after the New Year's Day here in England and I have popped down the plot. I thought I'd put this short video together to wish you all a very happy new year. And following the recent trends that I have seen on social media, I'm going to celebrate this by showing you some of our best successes from 2022 and really inspired by mothing from my family garden. I really like his idea of YouTubers showing things that haven't gone quite so well too, and I'm going to do that. I'll show you some of the things that have been a bit of a failure or haven't done well for us in 2022. So out of the things that haven't done quite so well, I'm going to start really here, not really with a failure in growing, but a failure in storage. So I'm going to talk about our winter squashes. We always grow them here at Don't Crop Me Now, and they've always been usually a very successful crop. We have found the best way to store these is to keep them at around 15-16 degrees Celsius, with certainly frost-free and at a pretty sort of constant temperature. It's the fluctuations in temperature and the very cold temperatures that start them rotting. Unfortunately, we had a really cold spell here in the UK, particularly here in Manchester, and I just forgot to move the squashes from the Polytunnel. And I knew they started to rot already, so I basically just forgot about them and thought, you know, stuff it. And I've come down today and I want to show you what they actually look like. So as you can see, it's really not that great. Some of them have gone mouldy already and they are very squishy. So what am I going to do with these? There are a few that are okay, and I will take them home and I'm probably going to pressure can and cook some of those. Because the stalk has probably been damaged, they won't last long in storage, but they're still okay to use now. But I'm going to try and compost some of the remaining squashes. I'm not going to put them on our main compost heap. I don't like to do that because I find all the seeds tend to start to sprout in the spring. So I'm going to compost them in a different way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to layer them up with leaves and put them in this sort of container. I know this container is not watertight because it hasn't filled with rain in the recent really wet weather. So I will put this, layer this in here, and I'm going to leave this in a dark spot and just allow it to compost mixed in with the leaves separately. While I'm making up this separate tiny little compost pile, I think I am going to use these random weed roots that I have left rotting here in this bucket of water. When we have things like mare's tail, little bits of bindweed and couch grass roots, I don't like to put these straight on our main compost just in case it doesn't get hot enough to break these down. So what I tend to do is just put them in a bucket of water and drown the roots, and then I'm going to compost them. So instead of putting these on the main heap, I think I will pop these in with the squash and leaves. Another thing that didn't go amazing for us in 2022 was our attempt at growing a giant potato using actual condor seed potatoes, which are the strain that you're meant to use to grow the very large potatoes. We set it all up pretty well, but when we harvested it in the time for our show, the potatoes themselves, there was one large one in the pot, but it did have quite a lot of scab, and it certainly wasn't as big as we were hoping for. However, it did win first prize in our little allotment show that's just on our ground, but hopefully next year we might do a little bit better. However, with this one, just like the composting, I always try to put a positive on things. We do actually have another 3 tubs of giant potatoes that I haven't got around to harvesting. So maybe in there's actually some massive potato that I might find. And I will certainly harvest those over the coming weeks. So watch out to see if we do actually any better with those than we did with the pot we harvested for our annual show. And the final crop that we're going to talk about that didn't do very well for us in 2022 was Swedes. I have to admit, we never do brilliantly with Swedes, but I thought I had given them much more space this year, so I was expecting them to swell up a little bit bigger than they actually did. I think at the end of the day, I planted them a little bit too late. We went into a bit of a dry spell then, and they just didn't really have enough water to increase the size of the roots. But as you can see by the ones that we've got left, I've taken the bigger ones out. They're pretty meagre, tiny little Swedes. I think out of these ones, there will be enough to make maybe another meal. But if you think this was a whole bed, I mean, it was the second crop, which was good. So it was previously used for another crop before this. But still, it's not a brilliant use of space for the amount of Swede that we actually managed to harvest. Now on to the crops that did really well for us in 2022, and the first one we're going to talk about is chilies. Now we grow chilies every single year, but we have recently been dedicating this greenhouse completely to chilies, and we have had chilies galore. This greenhouse was absolutely jam-packed. It was a complete forest in there. I put this down to the fact that it's really in hot sun, and chilies love that baking hot weather. We also invested in some self-watering pots, which means that they've got a really consistent but not too much water, and the plants absolutely loved it. We have got fermented chilies, we have got chili puree, we will be having for the most of 2023 spicy meals with chili in probably just about everything to use up last year's chili crop. One of the most successful things we did in 2022 with our chilies, which we had not done before, was using the Polytunnel to turn all the chilies upside down and hang them up to ripen where you had green chilies at the end of the season. So we were inspired to do this by the Chili Trump channel, and it was a brilliant success. In 2022 we had an absolutely brilliant harvest of conference pears. Now this tree is on 5B, and this was 2022 was only the second year we've actually had this plot. And this tree's been on the plot for quite a long while, but the plot was quite overgrown and it was a little bit overcrowded. And I know that in the past it's been quite a productive tree, but in 2022 it went mad and we had pears galore. One of the things that I made with these pears was some pickled pears. I've never made pickled pears before, and I have to say they are absolutely delicious. But we've had pear jam, pear chutney, pear everything. We've got a freezer full of pears, and they were a brilliant crop for us in 2022. Hopefully we will get the same crop for next year, but you never know. And sometimes with fruit trees, you can have very, very productive years, and then the next year the harvest can go down to allow the tree to compensate for that. So you absolutely never know. And the last crop that we're going to talk about that we had a absolutely brilliant harvest from were beans, but in this case I'm talking about beans for drying. I know it's a little bit unusual to grow beans for drying in the UK, but we have consistently had really, really good harvests. We've got some heritage varieties of beans collected from various sources over the years, and we had quite a lot of wigwams of beans. We had an area that was probably about 20 foot by 4 foot with a couple of extra beds this year. The harvest wasn't quite as high as last year because the beans were certainly affected by that very, very hot weather and that drought, but we still had an amazing harvest. We'll be using these beans in soups, stews, curries, burgers, absolutely everything for the oncoming years. We're actually only just at the moment starting to can 2021's dried bean harvest. So I think for next year we're going to grow a few less of the beans. We're going to look at the varieties, the ones that we found tasted the best and had the best storing capacities and the best yields, and we will concentrate on those a little bit more for next year. We do actually have an article on our website which I wrote in 2021 about the harvests of beans and which compares yields. So if you are interested in having a go at growing beans for drying, do take a look at that article and it may give you some ideas of where to start. So wishing you all the best on your allotments and gardens in your veg growing endeavours. Remember, even if you are new to this, I would probably class it as pretty experienced veg growers. We've been growing our vegetables probably about 20 years. You still get good harvests and bad harvests. It happens to absolutely everybody. So don't expect things to always go perfectly. Concentrate on those successes and build from things that haven't gone so well. You always learn from your mistakes. So if you've enjoyed the video today, please like, comment, subscribe. It only takes a minute, but it really helps our channel. Take care, everyone. Bye.